pressure on this journey to discover the rest. Go.
Welcome to the Adoption Journey Podcast. I am your host, Tarcia Smith, and welcome back to another week, another story, another journey. Before we get started, y'all like, subscribe, follow, share, do all the things, and then go tell all your friends to do all the things. Y'all already know. So in the building, I'm so excited. We have a repeat guest, and then we have her brother, who's a first-time guest, and we're going to get more tea from the Black Adoptee on this
Okay.
evening.
Tonight I got my wine though, but we go.
Oh, Lord, here we go. So I'm going to introduce her brother first, Eric Shaw. Hey, Eric.
Hey, how you guys doing?
All right.
We
And
good.
then y'all know Koko. We got Miss Koko in the building.
It me.
So first, before we get into their story, they also came all the way from Cali to the ATL to attend the Black Adoptee Meetup 2024. And we're going to get their take on it because they didn't get a chance to jump on last week.
Yes.
So I'm going to start with Eric. Eric, what did that weekend mean to you?
It was a really cool weekend. It was one of those weekends where you, I remember Nicole first told me about it. And sorry, it's hard for me. I call her Koko a lot, but I will call her Nicole too. So
we call her Koko.
Y'all don't
It's
call
all
me
good.
by my government though. Don't do that.
I know, so it's
I won't
hard.
do that.
But that's
Hard.
okay. It's
It's
okay.
hard. You know how to do it. But I am pretty good with calling her Koko now. It's like her alias. No, it was. I remember when she first brought it up to me. I was on board from the beginning and excited and looking forward to it. And it was. I feel like you just weren't wandering around, but then it was loose enough to where like you didn't feel constricted and people were comfortable. And it's just a good mix of people that were in different parts of their journey, different parts of the adopted community. Some people that have been in the adopted community doing work for like decades. So just to hear different pieces and things like that was really cool. So yeah, it was
Awesome.
great. Like I said, I can't wait for the next
To
one.
2025. I'm so glad you enjoyed yourself. Koko, what did the weekend mean for you?
So much. I think I've never felt so at home. I felt so connected to all of you, all of the Black adoptees that came. It was really one of the most profound experiences of my life, to be honest, because I've been around other adopted people before, but I've never been around that many Black adoptees at one time. And so that experience, to not have to like explain yourself, to not have to, even tell your stories, like everyone already knew, because we all sort of have this common thread, regardless of what your story is. Like, we are all Black, we are all adopted. And that was a really, really healing experience for me, because I got to be around my people, like people telling their story, people that had similar stories to our story. And that alone, it was priceless. Like I came back and I was on cloud. I'm still on cloud. And I literally was just talking to Lost Child today about like next year. I'm like, dude, I can't believe it's like, is it still October? Like, let's go. Like, we need to get on with this already, because we literally already planned so much stuff. So,
Oh my gosh.
best thing I've ever done. Everybody should be there next year. Like, this is the plug. If you ain't gonna be there, I don't know what to say.
I don't know what to say. Y'all are just blowing myself and Kathy our minds. I'm speechless. And I do understand what you mean. Like the weekend, like you had to be there. Like you really had to be there.
Right.
We can post all the pictures, all the reels, all the things, and people are like, "Oh my God, I need to be there next year." What happened? You had to be there.
Yes.
So wow.
And shout out to y'all for just bringing it together, because I think so many of us have wanted to, but just to even have the wherewithal to be like, you know what, I'm gonna just do it, regardless of what it looks like. This is the first one, and so shout out to you and Kathy, because y'all did your big girl thing right there. Like it was. I'm so ready for the next one.
And we're getting ready for y'all.
Yeah.
I don't think Chicago is ready for us, and
No, they not ready.
they're
Definitely
not ready. So October 10th through the 12th, 2025, we are going to Chicago.
Nice.
So save the date and
Yeah.
details to come.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and turn the corner. Eric,
Turn it.
I'm gonna start with you.
Mm.
Tell me, how old were you when you found out that you were adopted?
I don't know the exact age, but my guess is like it's one of those weird things. Like I don't really know consciously like school age of not knowing being adopted. So I'm guessing like
Okay.
5, 6. I'm pretty sure maybe 7
Okay.
at the
And
latest. Like I
and
don't
just
really
to
don't know. I don't ever know not being.
ever just not
Yeah,
knowing. That's your
and being
story too as well,
pretty young.
Koko.
Yeah, I'm pretty.
No. Well, yes and no.
Yes and
Yeah.
no.
I don't think that I was ever told, actually. Or else maybe I completely blocked out that conversation. But I remember calling Eric like, I don't know, a few years ago, and I was all immersed in a lot of more adoption stuff than I am now. And I'm like, Rike. Sometimes I call him Rike. Like, Rike, do you remember like me ever hearing this? Like, do you remember this story? And he was like, I actually don't think that you were told. I think you sort of like just learned by proximity. So I've always known, but I don't know that there was ever like a pointed conversation of my parents like sitting me down and saying like, this is what adoption is. You're adopted. It was sort of like, I just learned by proxy.
Okay. And just for the listeners and the viewers, the age difference between the two of you. Who's the oldest?
No,
Eric.
my mom, but not by much. I think we're like a little less than 2 years. It's like 20 months or
Okay.
something.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
2 years apart in grade in school. So
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question, being that you're so close in age, you are not biologically related. You were adopted by the same people.
yep.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. So they adopted two children at different times, I'm going to assume, because, okay. And you come from two different families. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it because I know the viewers at home are like, okay, let me get this straight. Okay.
Yeah, it gets complicated, huh?
Already, we just started.
Right.
Okay. So Eric, growing up adopted, what did that look like? Take me back, little Eric.
Like it really, like I knew I was adopted, always knew, but it was it was my only thing I knew, right?
Did you feel out of place?
I don't know. I don't think so. Like there would be some, like I don't know. I felt like there's different, because the people that adopted us didn't really sit down and talk about it a lot, and and then the facade of like where we were in a nice like suburbia neighborhood, went to like nice schools, um, were fed like clothed, all that stuff, taken care, like
Yeah.
all that stuff from the outside that looked great. So you just think being a kid, like, oh, okay, this is what this is. It's like, okay, well, I mean, if this is being adopted, this ain't too bad, like, because you don't understand anything really. So I don't think I really started having any super deep thoughts, to be honest with you, about it until maybe I started getting a little older.
Okay. I'm gonna put
I
a
didn't
pin in
feel.
that. Hold
I don't
on.
know. I didn't feel too out of place. Like I don't know. I just was always that.
You're just living
Always
like this is
known.
what we doing.
Yeah.
And Coco, that was the same for you?
No.
See, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Y'all had two different
It
experiences.
definitely wasn't, though. I
That's
feel
so
like I always had this level of conscious awareness within me about being adopted. We had so many dynamics, though, going on in our house. So it's really hard to capture that. Like,
okay.
my
Okay, let's
yeah,
try and
right.
capture it. Because
Okay.
now I got both of you together and you already have two different experiences.
Right, exactly.
So you don't have to pinpoint all of them, but what's one of the dynamics that top of mind stand out?
Well, just altogether, I was more of the black sheep, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric had a better relationship with our adoptive mother in a different way. So her and I, we just had a different relationship.
Okay,
And
hold
so
on. So
that,
stop. Hold on. Hold on.
yeah.
I'm gonna bounce back to Eric. What
Okay.
was your relationship like with your adopted mother?
Um, I think from the top, like, I think the biggest dynamic we have to say with like the lady that adopted us, um, she's a narcissist, like textbook.
Okay, but
So
let me pull you
we
back
grew
though,
up in
because
a
you didn't
we grew up in
always
a
think that, did
typical
you?
narcissistic like family. People know the family dynamic structures. Like, so you typically have like a child that's like the scapegoat. You know, that definitely was Koko. Then you have you have golden child, right?
Was
Which
that
I
you?
think, and I was the golden child in that.
So
So
tell me then, okay, because you say that this is in hindsight, but when
uh,
you're immersed in it, what was your relationship like with your mom? Were y'all
um,
tight? Like that was your girl or
yeah, it was weird.
Like,
Like,
yes and no,
yes and
right?
no. That's the thing. There's so much like
Ah,
manipulation and crazy stuff. That's what made the. That's why this like out of the fog, like being. It's so weird, like being in it when it was in it, and then now I'm out with like a clear mind. It's really hard. That's why sometimes when you ask me some stuff, it's weird. Like I'm like, am I giving? Like, how am I feeling about this now? Because I didn't get to express it as a kid,
mm,
and now
Yeah.
a lot of
yeah,
the feelings I have about it are ones that I've coming out of the fog. So it's almost like I've pushed a lot of the in the moment thoughts like out of my head. So if I give you like a blank look sometimes when you ask about that, it's because I've thought so much now about this version of me going back and reliving
yeah.
things,
So what
So
I
it gets
want you to
confusing
do,
sometimes, like, how did I feel? And we were fed so much things to feel. We weren't
we we
allowed
we
to
gonna we gonna
authentically
we gonna get
feel what
there.
we wanted.
So what I want
So
you to try and do
it was weird.
is tap back into Eric
Mm.
before he got out of the fog.
Hmm.
Just try and tap back into some of those
Yeah,
memories
no,
because I am so intrigued that the two of you have these different experiences already. I'm
yeah, I
very
think,
intrigued.
it is what it is. Like, I think,
So
it's really hard about that dynamic in narcissistic families with the golden child,
that's what I was just gonna say. I
all
have the
that stuff.
golden child and I have the black sheep.
Yeah,
Were there other kids in the home? Just the two of
Yes.
you.
So
yeah.
there's a middle. There was other kids, but so my sister, she was the middle child, and she's very much the middle child.
Yeah,
If that
yeah, yeah.
makes sense.
But
It makes
Like,
total sense.
it's
yeah,
weird because we're kind of both the
Adopted also
kinship,
kinship.
they're not even
So
officially
we have
not
adopted.
official.
adopted.
Yeah,
Just bring me that baby, middle child,
Kinda. She kind of strong armed
I
us
and
mean,
into
low
thinking she was her
then
key,
baby. Like,
low
be
key.
real. Like, that's kind
bring
of
me
like
that
low
baby.
key
I'm gonna
what
take care of
happened.
that baby, and then Coco, you are the baby. Or is there another child?
No, that's
Well,
it.
it gets complicated because yes, I was raised as the baby, but then my adoptive parents also took legal guardianship over my sister, adopted or unofficially adopted sister, whatever. My sister, they took legal guardianship over her brother who was younger than me. So he came to live with us. I was already like in high school, but I think he was like in sixth grade or something. So he came and that sort of shook the dynamic up even more.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question about your parents.
Okay.
Why are we going around getting all these kids? What's happening?
That's a great
This was.
question.
I
I
mean, I think
mean,
I thought about this. Yeah.
What you
if
say,
I'm
Eric?
being honest, if I'm being honest, and I'm always tiptoeing a tap Daphne because I'm wanting to be mindful, but I'm just gonna say it. Um, there was fertility issues,
Okay.
and I think that maybe having kids, the thought was that the bond was gonna be stronger. That was sort of gonna like seal the deal. So it was like,
Mm-hmm.
let's adopt some kids to make sure that we have kids together. And I think that that was a lot of it. And then I I don't have like a clear picture of what happened with my sister. There's some talk that maybe my adoptive mother really wanted a child and made that happen by, having access to her sister's kid. And that's all I can say. That's all I can really say about that. So
That
I don't know. I can't tell you the overarching question, I think, for any of adoptees who had a negative experience is,
yeah.
why would anybody adopt kids and not want them? Why would anyone, go out of their way to go through the adoption process and not treat their children like, you know,
Well, it sounds like Eric had a great experience. It sounds like Eric was the golden child.
No, but here's the
he
thing about the
was,
golden
but
child.
there
You got to
was
realize this
also
though.
there was underlying resentment there. Like Eric
From
knew something was off also.
Yeah, I always knew something was wrong,
Does that make
right?
sense?
Yeah. So here's the
mm,
thing: when people, typically think of like golden child, it's like, oh well, like the kid got to do like whatever they wanted and this and that.
sure.
That wasn't really the
That
case.
wasn't the case.
What really the golden child is? It's the one kid that the narcissist gets like their most supply from, and kind of like almost lives through. So you
That's
feel
tough.
like you're getting all the attention, right?
Right.
But what they're doing, that's what makes it crazy. You feel like you're getting the attention, but it's like you realize it's all for them. You don't
So,
have any autonomy. They're leading you down paths. They're like, it's like it's your trick. It's not authentic. Like it
okay.
feels, but being a kid, you're super confused.
So I'm going to ask you a question because before we turned the cameras on, before you hopped on,
Oh.
we were talking about you and it's basketball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how you were saying you didn't have the type of support that you
Oh no.
wanted to pursue the dreams that you might have wanted. Talk
Right.
about that.
Yeah,
Like
no, I
what?
just didn't
Yeah, talk
really
about that.
get a ton of support for things that like I really wanted to do. Like
So
she
what
had
would happen? Give
she
me an
had
example.
decided that I was gonna be a doctor. Like she just decided that, not and so
She decided
she
that
did
you
that
were
for a
going to
lot
be
of
a
us. She
doctor.
decides certain things for Coco. She decides certain
Coco,
things for
what you supposed to be, girl?
she has her she has her life planned
I
out.
feel like I was supposed to be a doctor too.
No, well, yeah,
Oh,
she had physical. Remember, it was like
Oh,
PT, like physical
well,
trainer, and
yeah. So a
then
big part of
she
my
wanted
life
you to
I
be a little bit
spent.
more sporty. But there's this
Yeah.
thing. It was so weird. It's like, first of all, she married a jock, a guy who was like in sports, teacher. I just mean that just a guy in the sports world. Like if you
yeah,
think
yeah.
about
No,
like
I
what a
get it. I
jock
get
is,
it.
not
Yeah.
in a
I
negative
get
way,
it.
but just like
Oh no, not at all. Usually the
lifelong
jock is the
coach,
cool
all
one.
that stuff. Like, and then you know, and then once they get mad at like you know, me in a way like that I wanted to pursue like something in sports. Like I love sports as a kid. I mean,
You love
still
sports
now.
now. That's why you
And
coaching.
still now, yeah. And
But you
so
don't understand the level though. Like Eric is like a sports almanac. Like he was, I mean, it would be ridiculous. Like the amount of sports
It
knowledge
would
he
be like,
has,
why do you know this?
the love for it. And then for
wow.
some reason she just resented him for it. I don't know what the energy
Yeah, it
was.
was really because it wasn't what she wanted me to do.
Yeah.
She wanted me to be, and which was just weird because I had, and we didn't bring about like so our adopted father, he had a son from a
Oh, I was
previous
getting there.
relationship.
Oh, I'm
So
getting
I
there.
just brought him
We
up
don't
too
get to
because
that part.
he
I'm
added
getting
to the
there.
sports fuel. He's trying to be his dad and follow his footsteps, and
Yeah.
he's really into sports. And I learned a lot of my sports and stuff like from him because we grew up in the same room. He was a good bit older than me,
hmm
but yeah, we were just like a pretty like sports upset. It was just part of the culture of the family. Like even like his brothers and his
So we
his
have this
sisters.
culture, and you are kind of following those footsteps. But
Yeah,
Mama's like, mm-mm, you're supposed to be
yeah.
over
So it
here in
makes
these
it so
biology books,
confusing.
sir.
It's like you're showing on one end, you're showing like acceptance of this, but like if I do it, it's not acceptance. Like she didn't really code any of my games or anything as a kid. I think as a kid, I think she maybe went to one or two of my games. I mean, and honestly, like
Look at my face. Like,
my
what?
dad
How do
went,
you just not go see your kid's game?
yeah, and my
Where they
dad
do
went
that
through
Just
at?
like my
games and
phone up.
stuff
So
or whatever. So, and it's like one of those things. Like honestly, I look back on it, like it didn't really bother me because I was
That's,
like so into like the game and like
I
whatever.
mean,
I didn't
but
really care who was
are you
there.
saying back then you thought it didn't bother you? Because I feel like it might have bothered.
No, I think what it is, now I look back and I start seeing that I was never really supported. That's kind of like what it is. Like in the
Mm,
moment, I didn't really care if she came to the game or not. I was never
yeah,
like
got you.
sitting around the long. I was at the game, like honestly, my parents could have dropped me off and I would have been
Mm.
fine. Like I was just
You were
that
like, just as
locked
long as I
in,
get to
and I
start,
wanted to
that's
play. Yeah,
and
that's it.
play.
Like I didn't really, it was cool because the thing was, it was the one thing that like I loved and I felt like I really put like a lot of time into as a kid. Like Cole knows we had a little basket on our roof, and I would like shoot all
Mhm.
day out there. Like I used to be
Ah,
out there.
and she just resented every
So
bit of that.
for me, when it was time to play basketball, I kind of shut out. Like that was my escape. I didn't really care
Yeah,
who was
yeah,
around.
yeah.
So
So I'm gonna turn the corner just a little bit, and I want to ask you
yeah.
about your father. What was that relationship like with you, Eric, and your adopted father?
It was pretty good. I guess it was pretty good. Like it was just really weird because we've talked about this too, and it wasn't like in a bad way. Like you gotta realize, like that woman made it really hard for anybody to have a relationship in that family. Period.
Period.
Because that's kind of like what they do. It's like a conquer and divide thing. Everybody's kind of like siloed and just trying to
Mm,
survive, and he's just trying to survive too. Really, at the end of the day, yes, he's an adult. And he made some decisions, and there's certain things where I felt like he didn't could have did a better job of like making us safe. I think he fell into her um, nonsense just like too much. But
mm,
and then I just realized too, as I've kind of like come to okay grips with that, just going like, okay, he was, you know, he was a victim of a lot of her stuff too,
Ooh, victim.
as well.
That's a
But
strong word.
it's unfortunate because I feel like if she was never in the picture, that I would have had like a pretty close to like kind of a storybook father son relationship because he was
And
a
let me
good
tell you, it's
dude. Like
interesting to hear
he
you
was
say
a good
that
dude. He really was like a good guy. I could say
because
that. Made some
remember,
mistakes, but he was a good guy.
and at this point, it's been over a year since Coco was on the show the last. I
Hmm.
remember you saying that same thing. If it wasn't for her, your
mhm.
relationship with your father, I remember that clear as day. You said the
and
same
I and
thing.
I and I mean, same thing. Like my dad was like your quintessential, like, goes to work, provides, but that was really the extent of at least our relationship. Like we had a different relationship because I ran track and my dad was able to be involved in that. So because of that, we spent a lot of time together, but I didn't get to spend a lot of time getting to know him like as a dad. Like he was more of like a mentor or a coach. That was the role that he
Mm,
always played in his life. Like he's been that to so many people. But as far as us having like an intimate father daughter relationship, I didn't have that with him, unfortunately.
mm,
It left me with a gaping fatherhood wound because I was never able to really connect with him. Like, and it hurts me because he passed away recently,
yeah.
and so it's like I don't ever get to ask him about that. I don't ever get to process that. Like, why didn't you ever tell me I was beautiful? Why didn't you ever,
Mm,
spend this like, you know, one-on-one time with me that didn't have anything to do with me running track or sports, or when we had conversations, why didn't you not lecture me, or why didn't you just talk to me? So we didn't have that kind of relationship. And yes, I think she had a lot to do with that
I
because
think it's
we weren't able to have our independence in that.
it's very interesting and the verbiage. It's that lady, she, her.
Mm, yeah.
The verbiage is
Yeah.
telling of how. It's
I
so
mean,
telling.
Just at the end of the day, it's kind of what it is, you know. For the longest time, you know, I would call her mom and say that's like one of the most important people in my life and stuff like that. Even like up to the end before I went like no contact. Even if you ask Koko, like I was giving her opportunities, but I think at the end of the day, like she just wanted to have zero accountability for anything. And like I said, once you unsee something, once you see it, you can't like unsee it. Like you're out of the fog now. Now you got to move in a different way. And she was just no longer like she, you know, once we had some autonomy, we are standing up for ourselves. Like she couldn't handle that at all. Like
And how
it's
long
just
have you been no contact, Eric?
for me, it's gonna be I think 4 years in December.
That's a
I
long
think it was I think it was 2020 in December.
And I know, like you said, you lost your father recently. My
Yeah.
condolences. And so, what was that? Because you had to go home for the funeral and
well,
see her. What? Yeah. What?
well, I mean, we all made our own decisions about how we were going to, you know, broach that. And I had been no contact. I don't know if did I go no contact first or did you?
No, I you went a little bit after. I think you had some
I was
close.
already
You
no
just
contact.
had some. You had some spats where you guys didn't talk for a while, and it
Yeah.
was kind of like quasi no
She
contact. But
said
I don't
low
think.
contact.
Yes, I was low
But there's
contact.
always because I will say, especially you know Nicole's role. I think you know in that family when you are like the scapegoat, there is going to be a more like confrontational relationship. Like
Sure.
well, another thing
Yeah.
that kind of got built up too to kind of confuse you even more. You know, she was the type of lady that would always tell you that parents are never like wrong. So we had kind of been like
Mm.
Hmm.
brainwashed from like a very young age
Oh
that
yeah.
basically like you know almost don't ever stand up
Parents
to
are
yourself to
never
a parent. A
wrong.
parent can't be wrong. They never apologize for anything ever. So um, that was hard. So that adds to the confusion. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So kind of going back, I mean, I hadn't spoken to her in quite some time.
Right.
Hmm.
And then my sister, she's like, hey, you know, mom wants your phone number. That's how dire it was. Like, you ain't even got my number. Like, you can't even reach me. That's how it
Wow.
goes. And so, but I said, you know, I'm in a different space. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe because the underlying thing for me anyway is that people will come around, you know, like the
Yeah.
door is always open. Like if she were to have a come to Jesus moment and you know, say like, hey, I'm sorry or whatever, that might be different. But no, she called me after 4 years talking about, oh, are you gonna come sit with the family? I was like, Sean, what family? Who, where, what family? The family has been disbanded, okay? And this is the icing on the cake. Like she didn't even call me, she didn't even say hi, she didn't call me to apologize. She talked about she's still mad.
So
So
wait a minute. Wait a minute. You just
this is
lost
the
your
day. This is
father.
the day before I go down there for my dad's funeral. She
Right.
has the audacity to
To call
call me.
you, and you hadn't talked in
No,
years.
years.
Are you coming to sit with the family?
Okay. Well, she really wanted to know if I was going to come down there and embarrass her.
I
That's what she
guess it's
wanted
how
to know.
she. Yeah.
Eric, did you get the same kind of? What was it like for you?
Well,
Uh,
Well,
do tell.
here's the thing. Like so. Um, I hadn't. So I think there's two main things. For one, I was, you know, no contact, and you know, so for me, you know, I was not gonna go to a thing that she put on or organized or did anything like that, or was a part of, or I have to see and all this stuff. So for me, I was out. But another part of it, it was a decision I had made a long time ago. I think it's um, I think it's really hard to like sometimes make decisions in the moment. So I like kind of going back to coaching, like you want to prepare yourself ahead of time. So like a lot of times in coaching, I prepare for certain times in a game. Like, oh, if there's 5 seconds left and we have to do a three, let's practice it now. So when it actually happens, we have the
Mm.
confidence and we're not like doubting ourselves. Then it's already like a clear thought that we thought out. So I had decided a long time ago. I even had told Coco, I'm like, if any kind of services or stuff like that she puts on, like, I'm not going to go to the funeral. But another thing that made me okay with that is that I came
Okay,
to
so hold on. I
complete.
gotta stop you. Hold on,
and
hold
don't
on.
mull
So
over
that
it.
I
Hold
came
on.
to complete kind of acceptance of what my relationship with my father
Hold,
was. I
hold on,
kind of
Eric. Hold on,
Wait,
Eric.
wait,
Hold
wait.
on. Hold on. Hold on.
I'm
Eric.
sorry.
Hold on. So just so I can be clear, you
Mm.
did not attend the service.
I did not attend the
You
service.
had decided before that if this is something she's going to put on, I will not be in attendance.
Yeah, but this was
Got it.
something I had already kind of decided when I went no contact, because I thought about I'm kind of like, it's kind
Yeah,
of like
you
that
really thought that
nihilistic.
thing
Yeah,
out
so
because I
I
don't know that I
thought
would
of
have thought
that
about
too.
that.
I'd already
Mm-mm.
thought about that, just because too. Another kind of wrinkle is at the end of life for our adoptive father. He had Alzheimer's.
Dementia or Alzheimer's,
Dementia,
yeah.
yeah. So it's a memory loss type
Oh,
issues, and
Yeah.
he
yeah.
started
Yeah.
kind of fading,
Yeah,
towards the
yeah.
end, and she was controlling everything about him at that point
Sure.
anyway. So it was no
All of it.
longer about him. So and then the second thing was that it was really interesting. Right around the
And
pandemic
you
time.
and just so
Yeah,
I'm sorry because my
yeah, no,
brain
you're
is all
good.
over the place. So
Yeah.
and you're having this information because your siblings are still contacted. So
Well, they
you
let me know. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess.
so they let you know kind of what's
Yeah,
going on.
Mm-hmm.
but she
Got you.
actually. But yeah, I had an uncle. His brother had let me know, and
Okay, so there's still some
yeah.
connection there, some in
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
some
And
places.
mind you, I hadn't seen him either for
Yeah.
years. She blocked us from being able to see him. So she was trying to in the beginning, and there was drama, and she just was always creating all of this drama. So for me, it was like it was just too much for my mental health that I felt like I had to like take a step back. And by that time my dad was already fading, like he was already a different person. It was so when I decided to come back into his life, this is like, it's so odd. It was only about it wasn't that long ago. Like I hadn't seen him that many times. And so I was like, I just talked to my sister, a bunch of people, and I'm like, I really want to support this person in the end of their life because
Mm-hmm.
they were like a really good person. And so I was like, I want them to know that I'm here, my presence. So I saw him a couple times, a few times, I think, before he actually passed. And it was interesting because the week 2 weeks before that, I took Jonah, my son, to go to Disneyland. And Jonah hadn't seen them either, because unfortunately he's a byproduct of that,
Yeah.
so, but I asked him, like, how do you feel about this? Like, we process it, he knew what was going on. And we both decided, like, well, let's go see him together. So
Okay.
when we went down to Southern California to go to Disneyland, we both went together and saw him. And it was, just a really good experience. I think Jonah needed to see him. And then I didn't know that was going to be the
The
last
last
time that
time.
I was going to see him. Yeah. And I really believe that he waited for Jonah. Like he really wanted, because he hadn't seen him in years,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that maybe that helped him to let go. Because it was really shortly thereafter that he ended up passing away.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, Eric, do you have kids?
Yeah, he does.
Yes.
He
Yeah, I
cut
have a
Can
daughter.
other. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. And also, but I guess because you've been no contact, it's just
Yeah, so that was kind of like the final straw too. Like she started kind of going after my daughter, and
this,
so that's when I
listen,
really
this
had to like.
lady.
That was it for me. And so it was one last incident, like this kind of blowout type deal. I said, you know what, I'm done. Like, because the thing was, I had stood up for Nicole in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
That was
So
the
you're talking
first.
trash about me.
That was the first. So she tried to say something about Nicole, and I just said no. And I just very simply said, no, we're not gonna do that. She'll go, what do you mean we're not gonna do what? I'm like, sit up here and talk about Nicole. She's not here to talk about anything. You want to talk about something with her? Sit down and talk to her about it. But like, I'm not
Yeah,
co-signing in this mess or whatever that's going on right now. And so that like kind of like raised her eyebrows that,
Yeah.
I was
Triggered.
sticking up for her. And then, but she already knew the writing had been on the wall because I had just been assertive and kind of just not caring anymore. And like, I think she
yeah,
was just like a whirlwind for her that she just, so at the end she tried to, it was this convoluted thing with my daughter that was just complete ridiculous, like narcissistic craziness. And I called her out on it, and then she kind of just wanted to dismiss me and my daughter and just kind of did something and turned her back, whatever. I said, you know what, I'm done. Like, this is not, I don't need to deal with this
Yeah.
stuff anymore. And went
I've
down.
been listening to you all talk about this lady for 35 minutes and I'm tired.
Right.
And you
Pretty
lived
much.
with it for years.
Listen,
Pretty
that is
much.
that
And yeah,
that
that's
is
the
I'm
a
thing.
very
wow.
It's so tiring because
exhausting.
she just poisons everything. And that was the kind of thing with him at the end. I had this really good time. Like, it was a little bit before the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know what happened? I had it was September of 2019. There was a couple of things. I was starting to wanting to change certain things in my life, make decisions for myself. So I left the IT world that I'd been in for 20 years. And decided I was gonna like kind of just do things on my own and figure it out. So right then she already knew. Like, she didn't approve of that, but like I did it. And
I
it took me
mean,
until I
but
was
you
almost
super
damn
grown.
40 to like make a life decision that I didn't, that was just my decision.
I want to ask a question. I don't know if either
Yeah.
one of you can answer this.
Okay.
But what was going on with her growing up? Because this sounds like trauma repeated.
Well, it was, and that's the whole thing. Like, we
Yeah.
know, and that's the thing. We even came to her like, listen, you went through some
Yeah, what did
stuff.
you go
Like,
through?
we're not even like, we get it. Like, so you have like two options. You can just get help, talk about it. I remember one time I tried to have a conversation with her. I even it was kind of towards the end, one of the last conversations I ever had with her. I even reached out to her. I could see it in her face. She was really close. This is one of the closest times I ever seen her to breaking down and just letting it go.
And she
I
couldn't
felt
do
like
it.
she was pretty close. So I gave her a big hug and I just said, just let it go. And then she kind of rocked for a minute and I thought she might. And then she just like kind of locked back up, walled up again. And
You
she
know
just
what?
said she couldn't. So I know there's some deep down really
Something that
like hurt. And I know there's some. I've speculated on what I think would happen, but I don't think she had a. I think she had a very traumatic childhood.
something that I've heard people say here recently since the Black Adoptee Meetup, when they were talking about just how freeing it was, like when we were together, compared to other races. They're so free. They just talk about all the things. They're going to tell their business. They're going to tell the neighbor's business and the dog's business. And we're just going to be free. And then there's us that we hold everything. Everything's a secret. We don't want to tell anybody. And then we have this trauma. And then we have kids. And then we pass on this trauma because we never got help or, fixed our own trauma or addressed our own trauma.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's a lot of what you all were dealing with.
Oh yeah. I felt like it was, especially now that I work in mental health, like I'm like, oh, she literally just projected every single thing that she ever felt. I mean, infertility in and of itself is so difficult for women,
Yeah. Especially
that is,
during that time, because you were
yes, that was what I
expected.
like. You're expected to have a child.
Yeah.
And then her story, like she came here from Georgia. She was poor. Like, she wanted to drop her Southern accent. Like she met somebody who had a little bit of money, you know what I mean? And that was the thing. Like, but she had all these really traumatic experiences. I mean, with her brother, with her father was murdered in a Mississippi bus station by the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, her mother passed away at the age of 19. She had a lot of trauma.
That's
and most Black people from the South do at that time. And she just, mulled over it, never paid attention to it. And I'm here to tell you, like, as a parent, that nothing tests your gangster but your kids. So all of your trauma, all of your triggers, all of that is going to come up in your romantic relationships and your relationships with your kids. And so it was constant, and she just couldn't, like Eric said, there was times, I'm not going to sit here and say she was never the okay or never nice, or there was never times where I didn't feel nurtured by her. There's so many good memories that I have with her. There are. But also she ruined that. She ruined the chances of having children, like later on in her life, when she continuously disposed of us, wrote us out, told us she was gonna. I knew what a will was when I was 8 years old, writing us out of the will, disowning us so many times. Me and Eric just got tired of it. We're just like, okay,
Writing
okay,
an 8-year-old out of the
yeah, you know
will.
what I mean. Like it's like at that
That's
point,
wild.
yeah,
So,
all
okay,
the
so
time.
now I'm gonna make another sharp turn. Eric, your birth family. Have you do you have any contact with them? Have you found them? Do you know anything
So
about them?
on my father's side, I had reunited. I guess it was 2019. It's been 5 years now, I think.
How did you find them?
23andMe.
DNA test.
Yeah, DNA. But for me, it's like one of those deals. Like I initially did the DNA test really because a big part of it was like I didn't know any DNA relatives just for if I'm a carrier for anything, that kind of stuff. So I know they
Yeah.
have that panel of if you're a
Mhm.
carrier and stuff like that. So having a kid, I thought that was something I should just do for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do the 23andMe, I got my results. I wasn't a carrier for anything major or anything like that. So that was kind of like comforting. Like, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, a little bit more about yourself than I ever did before, because
Yeah.
the only DNA relative I had that I've ever seen in my life was my
Your
daughter.
child. Yeah.
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 So she didn't know any history that I didn't know. So it was
Right.
like, so I did that, and then at the end you go through your stuff, and then they have that little box where it's like where you opt into matching, you know,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And they have a little disclaimer like who you thought was family may not be family, who you didn't think was family might be family, all kinds of, they tell you that. So I remember I'm like, okay, and I think that's kind of how it was gonna be for me. I was gonna have to just like it was just gonna have to like kind of happen like
Mm-hmm.
that. When I was younger, I think around 2021, no, early 20s, maybe mid 20s, I had found this person. I think I told you about them. They're like this adoptee finder person. And I
Mm-hmm.
reached
Mhm.
out to them and they told me,
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I'll find your parents. He's like, hey, I just want to let you know I'm really good. He's like, I'm gonna find your parent, who like whatever it is, whether they're dead or alive or whatever. I'll find them. So what I need you to do is be ready, like for the different. I thought that was really cool the way he kind of framed it. You got to be ready for good, bad, whatever. And I
Anything.
don't think
Yeah.
I had ever really thought about that. So I remember I never called him back. So
Mm.
that was probably like almost 10, 15 years prior. But it was like I had never, um,
Considered.
but I'm like, okay, I had thought about it, but I never just pursued it. And then I remember just saying, okay, let's sign up for this. If something falls, it's fine. And I was on there for almost 3 years with the match because I think I had actually sent off for my initial DNA kit like in like 2015 or something like that, just for my
Mm.
own information.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys are familiar, like if you have one of those, you get matches. It's like
Mm-hmm.
third cousin, fourth cousin,
Yeah.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
sixth cousin, blah, blah, blah. And they
Yeah.
have little percentages. So after a while, it's kind of exciting at the beginning, but it's like, okay, like if I find one more eighth cousin or
Right.
I'm like,
it's
wait,
just kind
how
of
does
like whatever. So you just kind of start just ignoring those things after a
yeah.
while.
Yeah.
They'll come in, oh, you have a new, they always like kind of try to hype it. They always say like you have a new relative, not like you have a new 15th cousin. So it's like you have a new relative. So I just remember this one time. I still remember I was walking into the house. I was like scrolling through my email. I'm like, oh yeah, another new relative or whatever. And I clicked on the thing. And the percentage popped up. Like, cause I always just scroll to the bottom, like percentage. I saw 48.7 or whatever it is, right? And I remember I just like dropped my phone
I
because
never
I
heard
was like,
that
yeah, that's my dad, right? Somebody's half
story.
your DNA, that's your parent.
Right.
So,
That's your parent.
so I was like, whoa, it wasn't like a first cousin or
Nope. It
like
wasn't the
and
15th
I'd been on
cousin.
there for a while, so it was like 3 years, so it wasn't like something immediate that happened. What I think is crazy for him, he had just signed up for it, so he like his first initial click yes, your first batch of results is your freaking
Son.
kid. Yeah, you
Right.
know? At least I had like a buffer of time. He just got like
Right. He just had a hot second.
like, can you believe that? Wouldn't that be crazy to have that hit on like your first go through on that? Like,
Kathy has a
that was
similar
for me.
story.
So
Well, I think my half sister, she
Kathy.
probably like,
Yeah,
who's this
so-
lady?
Kathy was like,
And the
this is
funny
just
thing was
rude. I'm not
that
even
a
looking for him.
the funny thing that a year prior, I actually had got a match for his like first cousin or something like that.
Okay.
That's
And
a
we
close
actually,
match.
That is
yeah,
not that.
it was. But the thing was, it was crazy that we did a in app chat real quick. I think we even might have exchanged numbers, but I never followed up. We never followed up. And honestly, if I would have followed up then, like it would have been like then. So it was like a year. It was almost a year to the date later. And I remember
Yeah,
telling him, I'm like, oh, like, I'm like, we actually, because we met at the like this family meetup thing. I'm like, we actually had talked, and they're like, wow, you know.
So you have connected with your father.
Yeah, so I've connected with him. He had 2 other
Siblings?
kids.
Okay. And
He
did
had
you
gotten
meet them as
married. So I
well?
was born in '79, and then he got married.
So do you know, and what about your birth mother?
Birth mother, I don't know anything,
Don't
and that's
know
like kind of
anything.
one of
He
those
wasn't able
things
to tell
where,
you anything?
yeah, he wasn't really able to tell me a whole lot about her. It
Mm.
was kind of like a very short term type thing.
Mm. Did he
Like a
even know you
friend of a
existed?
friend. Yeah, friend of a friend, fun weekend type thing. I think it's what it
Got
sounded
it.
like type deal. You know,
Got it.
whatever. You know,
Yeah,
it's
Happened.
happened, and
it happens.
that's kind of what happened. And he said the last he had kind of heard, she just said, "Hey, I'm going to L.A. to, you know, give the baby up for adoption." But she didn't really. I don't think he knew what her connection in L.A. was or anything like that. And then she called him on the day I was born, and
And
then
that was
gave her
it.
what she named me, and then ate or whatever. And then that was the last he had heard from her about anything. And I found some pretty close like relatives, like second cut, like that people should know who she is, right? Like
Yeah.
multiple people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but you
I've
haven't.
got no.
Somebody know.
Now I
Somebody
know
know.
somebody knows. So
Somebody
now
know.
I'm at the phase
Yeah.
where I'm kind of just like,
I'd be like,
Look, give
you
me those
know,
results. I'll have her found by next week.
I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm like, I think it's to the point where I'm like, okay, there's 2 things. She's either passed away, or she just doesn't, want to deal with that, and she's made it known to like the family.
The family that she doesn't
You
want
know,
to deal
and
with.
which I can, if that's what she's done, I have to
So,
respect that.
what was your birth name? Because I just have to assume that your mama changed your name.
Yeah, no,
That
of course.
lady, my
Yeah,
bad.
no, of
That
course.
lady changed your name.
Yeah, my birth was Michael. Yeah.
Koko, what was your birth name? Are you gonna tell us? No.
Yeah, so my foster family named me. So I was baby bracket. I was never named actually, but my
Me
foster
either.
family named me Summer, which I feel like is so fitting
It's
for me.
so
Like,
fitting.
hello, I am the sunshine. Like, let's go.
And she
So-
is.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I
God,
grew
I
up with her.
love
I
that
know.
name
I've
so
known her for
much.
4 years.
But I'm Nicole instead.
Okay, Summer. That is so fitting.
It
That's
really.
So, Eric, I want to ask you this: being that you had this with that lady, and then you found your birth father, so there's some kind of now you have this biological connection. The person you are today, how do you feel about all this today?
I think I'm okay with a lot of it. I really am. Like, yeah, do you wish it could have been different? Of course, but that's a lot of things in life. But if people aren't delivering and being accountable and doing what they have to do to like keep something going, wishing about it isn't gonna. Like, I'm super practical, so I'm kind of one of those people that once I
You're a
kind of figure
guy.
it out, like I'm mathematical, I'm analytical.
Oh,
So
you're
it's just
logical.
like,
You're a guy. You're a
I
dude.
can't like 2 + 2 is 4. It's not 7. I'm not gonna sit here and twist myself to try and think that like it is what it is. So I just accepted that she doesn't want to take any kind of accountability for anything. Finding out about her narcissism and things like that, and finding out what that is and the traits was like pretty mind blowing, um, because I'm like, whoa, it all makes sense, because I
Did she know
remember
that you found your birth father?
she did. I was still in contact with her when I did.
How she feel about that?
I know she didn't love it, because she always kind of planted to see that we'd be betraying her if we ever looked for her. Right?
Right.
She never really just came out and said, "Don't ever do it." But she would kind of fake the front that she was supportive. But then, and again, it's always like a mind f with her. Everything was like she make you kind of think, but then don't dare do it. That was kind of her mo with everything. Even with school, she would put us in private schools, stress
Yeah.
education, this and that, all this.
Ah.
She buying and dude, our house was crazy. Like first, our father was an educator, and then second, we always had a computer in our house, which was kind of crazy. Like in the '80s, I don't
Yeah.
think you buy
Yeah.
computers, right?
In the
We always,
80s, you had a computer in your
We had
house?
yeah,
all the
we always
toys,
yeah. First we had
everything.
a
Oh,
yeah,
y'all
we,
were
we always had
rich.
a computer. No, but it
But
was
it was definitely like privilege, which was so like confusing, right? Because on one hand, like we're completely taken care of, we've got all the things,
All the
and this
things.
was and this was why this was part of her. Like she would show her love
Mm-hmm.
through buying gifts, through spoiling, in these ways. But then she would always also use those things manipulatively against us. So
Hold
it
them
was,
over your head.
oh my god,
yeah. So
like
you're like,
so
dude,
much.
I'm to the point to where I'm like bah humbug. Like I don't want to have
Or
nothing to do
hates
with Christmas. To be honest with you, ever for the rest of my
he
life.
hates
But
it.
that was like her
Oh,
Super Bowl, like her
man.
Super Bowl. But it was about her. Even then, she would
Yeah.
even make giving you a gift about her. Like it
Oh
always had
yeah.
some kind of tie into her, something that she approved. And when
You guys
I
give
very
me
rarely
what I
felt like
want.
I really very rarely felt like it was ever about genuine gift giving and knowing your child or knowing your friend or knowing your spouse enough to get something that's really going to set home. It's more about showing look at everything I got, I
That,
done
and then
and
she
made.
had to put the front on for the outside world.
Oh yeah.
Right,
Oh, we
yeah.
got to
So
look
it was
like this
I
just
was like
picture
a
perfect.
doll.
it
Just
was just
dressed
over the
up.
top, and then you when you're a kid, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I'm getting all this stuff again. But then once you get
Yeah.
older and you start looking back at it critically and thinking about it, you just realize it was all kind of like bullshit. I don't know what other kind of way to really explain
It's
it,
probably no
but
other.
that's just what it is. So I'm very accepting of kind of how everything shook out. Like I tried everything I could at the end for her to come with some accountability. Like I said, I thought she's gonna have that breakthrough moment. Like she was almost there. She pushed it back. Never wanted to have any kind of accountability, and
Yeah.
so that's just kind of where it was left. And then with my birth father, I was able to, like I was saying before, I don't think I got to finish, but I was talking about I had Alzheimer's and I had left my job in 2019. And I was kind of doing some freelance stuff and doing some things, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I had a lot of time, and I would go take walks with him, right? And
Mm.
we didn't say anything because we had a time where he wasn't really having conversations, but he would get really excited to go. And that was another thing. That bothered her. So now she's making it hard for me to even do the walks. Oh, well, what time are you coming? Come there here. If you don't come at this time, you can't take them. She had to control everything. It was so stupid. Oh, you're getting too
Mhm.
close to him. That's just how it was all the time. It was always like that. And that's what we had to
Yeah.
This
deal with.
child.
And so
I
at the
know.
end, that's why I say if if he had his faculties, I think it would have been a little different because even though he couldn't talk to me, the energy we had, I felt like we had
Yeah.
energy exchange on these walks, and he kind of I think I was able to forgive a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because like I said, he was always cool. And we had some really cool bonding moments, but it was just very confusing that some of the stuff that if you think about love, how it was allowed to happen. I remember questioning myself in my late 20s, early 30s. I think I might even said Nicole, I don't even know. Do I love my dad? Is it true love, or do I just say it because
Mm.
you're supposed to say you love your dad or the person
Or
raising you?
does my dad love me?
Yeah,
Like,
but it was vice versa. It was both ways. It was both ways.
So, Eric, I have to ask you this question, being that you are so thoughtful. When the lady leaves this earth, what's the plan?
She leaves the earth. What?
What's your
What's the
plan?
Oh, I mean, there's no plan. I mean, I'm not gonna go to her. I mean, if she has a funeral or anything, I won't go. I won't go to
I
her
won't
funeral.
go either.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, and it's just what it is at this point. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not trying to like
That's so deep.
be
Ain't
extra
it though?
or anything like that. It's just I knew like there was no way I was gonna be able to live a productive life. It was just amazing that I'm alive and survived up to like this point. Really, I wasn't gonna be able to live a successful life with her in my life. I just wasn't going to be able to do that, you know.
That's
And then we just came down to that, and I was able to put myself first and have like self love and really understand what that was. Because when you get raised by a narcissist, you don't understand empathy. You don't understand like self
mm,
love, autonomy, and things like that, making your own decisions.
Yeah.
That was something new for me. I still struggle with that. Like, you know, up
do you
until
struggle with
in my
that too,
mid
Koko?
40s, and it wasn't until
Hell
my late
yeah.
30s, early 40s when I started
So
to
much.
able
So
to
much.
unravel some stuff. Once I was able to pinpoint, oh, she's this, and then when I went back and saw that she's the textbook version, and it just really opened
Wow.
up a lot. But I'm like, okay, now I know the blueprint, and now I can see, and I was able to go back and like, and then that's crazy because you go back and you relive your whole life with your new information. So that
Yeah,
was
Yeah.
yeah,
like a
yeah. Go
really
back and think about some
crazy
stuff.
time.
And one of
Sure.
the things I always want to like to talk about is like how that affected our relationship. Like me
Oh
and Eric
yeah,
never had a relationship. Like never, because she was always in the mix. So we were never allowed to have our own relationship. So literally, I was telling Poet earlier, I was like, that was the first time the adoptee meetup was the first time that me and Eric have really ever like traveled together and like made like
by
Wow.
ourselves,
yeah,
yeah.
like pointedly was like,
Yeah.
look, we gonna go hang out like me and you. Like this is me and you. We're just now, after we went no contact, carving out like what our relationship looks like in our adult life. Because we were never able to do that before. I was never cool. I mean, we was cool, you know, Eric's
No, we
always
were
been
always
together.
cool. I would
But
say
it was
that, but we were just
never
never
like,
authentic because we never
yeah,
were
we
able to
never
have a good
came
real,
close.
nothing real.
Yeah.
But we were
Yeah.
cool. I don't want people to think we were fighting or hating each
No, we
other.
wasn't
No,
But
no,
beating
what we
no.
were
But it was you
capable
were
of
never able
being,
to nurture your relationship
right?
because she
yeah,
was
That's
always
exactly.
in the mix. Yeah.
And she was
yeah. So we
always,
knew we had each other's
yeah,
backs. Like that's my brother. Always. That's my sister. This my
yeah.
family. However, like as far as us being able to have like an intimate relationship where we could talk about the things that she did to us, how our perspectives were, we never got to do that until literally I was late into my 30s. We started to disconnect from her. So that was also really profound for me, like just this new relationship that we have been able to carve out and sort of like, you know, also started like to bloom and flourish at the adoptee meetup because it's something that we can have a commonality. We were never, when I tell you never, I literally mean never allowed to talk about being adopted. We never spoke about it to each other until we were well into our adult years.
And
Like,
I
how
can tell
crazy is
you
that?
that that weekend, you would have never known that the two of you have never hung out like that. You would have
Yeah,
never
we,
known.
Yeah, we
we, we
hung out,
hung
but
out.
I just want to get it like we've hung out a lot. Like, trust me,
Yeah,
but like just me and her. Hey, we're gonna go on a plane and go somewhere,
yeah,
and
like
it's not all our
Yeah.
together.
family members. It's not a reunion. It's not
No,
something else. It's just us
Just we're gonna
two.
go and do
That's
something.
it.
yeah,
That's
And
together.
that
amazing.
was the first time we had done that. You know,
Yeah,
but yeah, we've always like like when I was when she had been up there, like if I was when she moved up north, when I would go up
yeah,
there,
come
I
visit
would
me.
meet and we'd
Yeah.
meet up for
Yeah,
dinners and
yeah,
do stuff. So it was always whatever. I just think now that she's out of our lives and we're out of the fog, like our capabilities of what we can be is like blossomed
That's
so much.
just
yeah,
I think before, like even what we were able to do, we were maxing out what we could do. It's not like we could have been any more
yeah.
better
That's
than what we were. You know what I'm
we
saying?
went on vacations
Yeah,
together. we still have the same common experiences as far as
Yeah.
like with her, like the way that she was, and just the way our life was as kids. I mean, we were all we really had because we
Yeah.
also weren't allowed to have other relationships. So we were close in some ways, and then in other ways we weren't, you know? And so we had to cultivate that as we grew up, which was wild.
But it was just like
Yeah.
anything because we didn't have a good. It was just more like facade stuff. Like we're always
Yeah.
together, so we were tight, like in certain ways, you know.
But then if
And we were all
you
within
peel
grades of
back
school. We're all
all
within 2 grades
the,
of each other.
Yeah.
but if you peeled back all of the layers down to the root, you were never able to really connect.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
that's all it was.
resented Eric a lot as being the golden child
The
because
golden
again, I
child.
didn't see it that way. I
Until
just
you
saw it.
understand, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. Again, when I was younger, we just saw him. Eric could do no wrong, or not even do no wrong, but she just doted over him
She
differently.
obsessed over
She had a
me,
weird-
right?
Ooh, trauma bond. Her phone's
And
ringing.
and I think too, going back when you talk about her with like kids, like well, her first, our brother that was from our dad or adopted dad's first marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, however she ended up getting her niece. Like now that I'm older and putting pieces of stuff together, I really think she kind of just strong armed her. Like her sister was in just a vulnerable position. Wasn't gonna be able to put up much of a fight, because she was battling drugs and alcohol and things like that. So I think she just kind of silently in the night, kind of, and that's just what it was. And then so when she got me, I think that was her first like he's mine.
Right.
I'm gonna put. So for her, it was still kind of like her sister's kid, and then
But this
her
one is
stepson was
mine.
her. It wasn't from. It was her stepson.
Right.
So differently. So I think that's who she put all the attention to, and then she adopted Nicole, and she had she definitely. If anybody, I would suggest anybody just real quickly after this, if they listen, just look up narcissistic family roles, because it's pretty classic. You got your
Yeah.
when you raise a narcissistic family, you have a golden child, and then you have your kind of black sheep child, and Nicole ended up
Being the
that.
black
But
sheep.
it's confusing when you're a kid because all you kind of see is this. Oh well, he's getting attention that I'm not getting, but
Yeah,
she never
it
felt
was
the
her
pressure of
perspective.
having that attention. I was able to explain to her. I'm like, yeah, she would give me attention and put all this energy into me, but it was like things she wanted from me. It's not like,
Right.
And she was very like restrictive and very like controlling.
That's all of that
wasn't
is
good
exhausting. All of it.
Yeah, it wasn't good attention. Yeah. So it's just one
Welcome
of those
back.
things. And it
Hey, I'm
is,
sorry, cut that part out. I was just like, I know this thing gonna die.
Well, I
and that's,
can't because he was still talking, so it's
Oh
fine.
no.
and that's
It's
why that
fine.
stuff
It's fine.
works. That's why that
It's
manipulation works because we're not able to make a real connection. So she almost has us pitted at each other,
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of pitted at each other because she's dumb. That's the thing I think what people don't realize with manipulators, narcissists, stuff, they're not dumb people. Like you start thinking about some of the stuff and the plans. Some of the stuff is like that's like brilliant. If you kind of did that for something positive, like you could change the world.
You could change the
Right.
world.
The depths of these like pieces and movements and how you got to put people to get something out of them. It's like
It's also
pretty
exhausting.
deep. It's pretty crazy.
So-
And that's how so many people end up, kind of in this fog of either narcissists or these other kind of disorders. It's very hard to get out of the grasp of that stuff.
I will tell you too that listening to this, and I know I've heard your story, Koko, but then now listening to his as well and talking more about that lady, you give a new definition for me to out of the fog in a way that I have never even considered. Yeah.
Because
It's a new definition for me because it
Yeah.
looks so many different ways. Never thought about this way.
Well, it's so layered, right? It's like I started coming out of the fog first. I was sort of the one that introduced all this to Eric and just like started talking about it, just like to go get really into it. And then when you start to see how much of our lives was affected by her, like and by like the gaslighting and just like not being able to process this, like not being able to process adoption is I would say is up there. It's abusive. It's abusive because there's no way that a person who's adopted.
What's going on with her phone?
Dang.
So, what I'm going to ask you while she's handling that, because we're going to wrap up here, I want to ask you if you wanted to say anything to any adoptee out there that might be struggling with this narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them? What advice would you give to them?
I would just say, for what, it's not uncommon, just because the traits of narcissism just kind of line up well with like wanting to be a savior and having this facade, and this, it's a lot of this, the mask. That's what they talk about. If you get into narcissistic personalities, they're protecting their mask and they don't want you to see their true self, right? Because they have things that haven't healed. So my whole thing would be like, if you understand that that's what they are, be strong with your boundaries. And I know a lot of people probably think like, well, should I know they're narcissists, and this goes with narcissistic abuse. Like, should I go no contact or not no contact or whatever? I think for me, I just think once I just saw things so clear, and one of my boundaries was just like accountability and stepping up to the plate. And I changed that in all my relationships. Like, I needed that from people that were going to be in my life, and it makes no difference that that's her. And since she didn't step up to the plate with that, I think I felt like it wasn't even really me going no contact. It was her making the decision, that's just what was the best thing to protect me.
Yeah.
So I did it. And for any adoptees out there that I think that are struggling with that, they feel like they have, a narcissistic adopted parent, and they think that, should I go no contact or go back and forth with it? I'd say just have strong boundaries, and the decision will happen on its own. I think, that's kind of just like the way to go. Like, you're not wrong, because it's very hard. I can't sit up here and say, yeah, go no. It took me 40 years to figure out, to get to the spot where I got. And I understand how hard that grip can be, and being a victim of narcissistic abuse. I found like a lot of relationships I had in my past, friendships, romantic relationships, whatever, are people that also went through narcissistic abuse and things like that too. So being able to talk to them about certain things, and you just see it, like, it's just a hard thing to get out of and shake. So I would say give yourself grace, set really good boundaries, and once you start honoring your boundaries and having self-love, like, if no contact makes sense, that's what's going to happen, but don't feel like, okay, because I know there's some people that, because I stayed in contact until I didn't. I wasn't in contact till I wasn't, until it just got to the point to where, like, some people's buffers are different, and everybody has a different relationship too with their, when it comes down to it. Like, I just got to the point there was nothing there left to save for me.
And that was it.
Like, some people might actually feel like, there could be some things tweaked where I could still be in a relationship with her, but she hasn't, that wasn't there. So I think that's the thing. You can get some insights from other people, but also, like, your story is your story, and don't feel like, you're not doing it the right way if you're not no contact yet, or you're not here, or you're not there. I think that's what kind of happens sometimes when people get into the space the first time.
Yeah.
They want to do a little bit too much, like, comparing. So I would just say, keep strong boundaries. If you get to no contact and that's just what naturally happens, then just be okay with that.
It's okay.
Difficulties is not, and now I'm like,
it's okay. And so, and he just gave his closing remarks, and so I want to ask you.
I'm trying to.
There we go. I want to ask you, in closing, if you had anything to say to adoptees, and I asked him that was dealing with the narcissist. What would you say to them? What would your advice be?
I would say, don't be afraid to walk away, because, I'm as a mental health professional, I'm not a super fan of throwing out, certain mental health diagnoses. However, When a person is narcissistic or has these traits, they don't change. And so at some point in time, like, you have to choose yourself. And it's hard. That piece is hard because I don't care, adopted parent, bio parent, parent is the most profound, substantial relationship of your life. And then for an adopted person, you've already been orphaned, and now, you're in this family and you're in another family and you have another set of parents, and then those set of parents or that parent fails you. So I would just say is, if you feel it and it's not right, like, don't be afraid to walk away. Don't feel like you have to keep any person, let alone your narcissistic adoptive parent, in your life. You don't have to do it. Like, you can move on, you can heal, you can have a better life outside of that. And I never thought that. I never thought I was so attached to that person and that life, and just so attached that I never thought that I could have a life outside of that. And my life has gotten exponentially better since I've got no contact. I don't know. I mean, I know it sounds bad, but my life has gotten so much better since I decided to choose myself out of all of that. And so that's what I would say to all adoptees is always choose yourself. Always choose yourself.
Both of you,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming on and
Yes.
sharing your story. If you want to hear Koko's story, I'll have to drop in the description what episode it was.
It was a while ago.
It's been over a
was-
year.
Yeah, it has.
It's been over a
I
year.
think it was, it's going to be almost
You were
2
one
years.
of yeah. You were one of my first.
Oh, I love
yes,
it.
yeah, you were very early on. So if you want to hear her story, which is wild, you think what you just heard was wild? This is like,
And the other
Coco's
part,
story.
I just found that I might have found my bio dad and bio half sister. It'd be too much. That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast. I'm going to bring you back for a third time for that.
Okay,
Oh gosh, that's
we
whole.
right there with that. We right there.
Well, you have to keep me posted. But thank you guys so much for doing this. Eric, thank you for sharing your story
Oh, thanks for the
and giving
platform.
your wisdom. And I appreciate both of y'all. And until
Thank
next
you
week,
so much,
don't leave me.
Tarcia.
You're welcome. Don't leave me, guys. And until next week, bye, family.
Journey on. You need a pie with the good? Oh yeah, with the store.